Hello everybody, welcome to the video. Hopefully you're all having an amazing creative day. So today we're going to be talking about the R5 Mark II rumors, all the rumors that are out there right now, because this camera is rumored to be less than 6 months away. And we're also going to talk about some features. Well, I'm going to talk about some features that I would love to see in the R5 Mark II as someone who uses this camera all the time. It's my daily driver. And hopefully someone at Canon watches this video, and hopefully you guys, subscribers, watchers of this video, leave some comments down below, and hopefully Canon reads those comments and gets your input on in terms of like what you want to see in the R5 Mark II. Because you know what? We live in an era of social media. We can all share our thoughts and ideas. And if you want to be constructive, leave your comments down below, and hopefully the right eyeballs read the right messages and things start to happen. And that would be pretty cool. So in this video, we're going to talk about the rumors that are currently out there about the R5 Mark II, and then maybe talk about a few things we would like to see in the camera as people who use the camera. I've had the R5 since day one. I pre-ordered it when it was first announced. I've had it since 2020. It's my daily driver for photo and for video. I absolutely love this camera. The image quality, the photo quality, video quality, superb. The sensor is absolutely amazing, but there are some things, some quirks with this camera that can be addressed. So the 5D Mark II, or R5 Mark II, I don't know why I keep thinking 5D, but the R5 Mark II, there's things that can be done to make that platform better than this platform. So with that being said, let's get into it. All right, so we're filming with the R5 again, and we're using the 28-70 f2 at f2, and we're filming in 4K all-eye, and you can see the image quality is amazing. We were filming with the EOS R with the 15-35, but the 28-70 just takes it to a next level, and plus with the high-resolution sensor on the R5 paired with that lens that resolves a lot of detail, it is absolutely amazing. So first things first, let's talk about the release date, because everyone's wondering when's this camera going to be coming out, and nobody officially knows, but the rumor sites are saying that February 2024 is when the camera is going to be announced, just ahead of CP+, which makes sense. And that also makes sense in terms of like Canon seems to launch their 5Ds and R5s in 4-year segments. So July 2024 seems to make sense for the date when we'll actually have the R52 in our hands. So that's what the rumor sites are saying, and I'm agreeing with them, and I think that makes sense. So now let's talk about the specs relative to the photography, and then we'll talk about the specs relative to videography. So let's start with the photography. All right, so first things first, the sensor, the heart and soul of the camera. The rumor sites are saying that this camera is going to have a 62 megapixel sensor, which makes sense to me. That Sony a7 R5 has a 61 point something megapixel sensor. So if Canon comes out with a 62, that just puts it in line with everything else. And I think that's super competitive. And another really cool thing too is that the sensor, for the first time ever on a 5D camera or R5 camera, the sensor is going to be a stack sensor. So that is a huge bonus. If it's a 62 megapixel stack sensor, I'm in love. I think that would be absolutely amazing. All right, so there's one drawback and two benefits to a stack sensor. The one drawback obviously is price. It's going to increase the price of the R52 over the R5. I mean, inflation and all that kind of stuff, it's kind of expected anyway, but probably more expensive camera. But the two benefits are readout speed. So if you're shooting sports, let's say high action sports or fast action sports, baseball bats won't be all wonky, golf clubs won't be all wonky. It depends on the readout speed of the stack sensor. I don't know. It's still 62 megapixels, so there's a lot of megapixels to go through. But there is something in the rumors here that might negate that and give you a faster readout speed. We'll talk about that in a second, but the readout speed is definitely one positive, and the other is better dynamic range, and that's always welcome. Better dynamic range is awesome. The dynamic range on the R5 I've been super happy with. I've shot weddings where I'm shooting the bride and the groom in sunlight, and the bride's in a white dress, groom's in the black tux, and I'm still able to get great shots out of it. So dynamic range on the R5, amazing. R52, if it's better, whew, I'm happy. Now, there hasn't been any mention of this on any of the rumor sites, and I doubt there will be any mention of this on any of the rumor sites until the camera finally launches and it gets into the hands of YouTubers and we start testing it. But what I'm thinking is with the stack sensor, maybe we'll get a nice dual gain sensor in the R5 too. Maybe we'll have like a base ISO of 50 or 100, and then maybe we'll have another base ISO of 3000 or something like that, 12,000, who knows. But it would be super awesome if we could have like a dual gain ISO camera, and then we could have really, really good low light performance. I mean, for videos, that would be amazing. For those of us who shoot events, weddings, corporate events, things like that, in dark environments, to have a dual gain sensor and be able to get clean images out of the R52 at a really high ISO, that would be amazing. So fingers crossed. Hopefully we get a really good dual gain camera as well with the stack sensor. All right, so the interesting thing I've been reading about on the rumor sites is, what do they call it? A variable resolution. So the sensor is going to be a variable resolution sensor, and they're talking about it being able to shoot at 62 megapixels, 31 megapixels, and 15 megapixels. So that's kind of interesting because remember I was talking earlier about high-speed sports and the readout speed of the stack sensor. If you're reading out a full 62 megapixels, it's going to be a lot longer than reading out 31 megapixels or even 15 megapixels. Like if it crops in. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what they mean by variable resolution, because is it just going to be the raw file? Like, does the camera take that 62 megapixel raw file and shrink it to a 31 megapixel in camera and shrink it to a 15 megapixel in camera? Because I mean, obviously, if you can shoot 8K oversampled 4K, the camera has the ability to shrink images and resize things in camera. Or does this variable resolution mean that the camera is going to crop into the sensor? Because we have this 1.6 APS-C crop on the R5. So if you want to shoot in APS-C mode, you can, convert the camera into APS-C and you get more range out of your lens and you use less of the sensor. So I'm thinking, if we take the full frame sensor and we crop it down to 31 megapixels, that's about half of 62. So the readout speed should be twice as fast. And 15 is half of that, so the readout speed should be even faster. So for high action sports, can you set the camera to a 15 megapixel camera and get super fast, like blazing fast readout speeds on the sensor? So I'm wondering, what does variable resolution mean and how's that going to work? Because that's pretty exciting for you sports photographers or anyone who shoots like fast action, high speed stuff. Or like, will it make a difference in video? We'll talk about it in video. I'll touch on it now, but you know how you get the slow readout speed and you get that jello effect in video, right? Will this negate that if you're shooting at 15 megapixels for the shots where you have to pan really fast? Can you shoot 15 megapixels 4K, 8K? I don't know, but it's pretty exciting. I'm so curious to see how this all unfolds and what this really means, but there you go, variable resolution. Okay, and one thing that, kind of might fly under the radar, but I'm super stoked about this, is that the R52 is going to house Canon's brand new processor, the X2S. And nobody knows what this chip can do or what it can't do because it's never been featured in any other camera before. The R52 is going to be the first camera that has it. But, I mean, let's think about what's been happening in the smartphone world. Like, you can get ProRes RAW and like really great like video recording in the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and then you have the Samsung Ultra series with their chips, and these phones can do amazing things. And we got to remember that camera companies aren't camera companies anymore, they're electronics companies. And cameras are pretty much smartphones with giant lenses on the front these days. There's no film, there's no gears. It's not like it used to be, right? It's a whole new world. So we don't know what this X2S chip is capable of, but if we think about what these smartphones can do, I mean, we can only dream of the capabilities of these chips and what can be done. So that's pretty exciting. One thing I think for sure is we're going to get better autofocus with the R52 with this new chip. Maybe Canon's going to do something like Sony did with that AI chip or something like that. So we'll get better, smarter AI autofocus and it'll know what we want to track. One thing I would like to see is more subjects to detect, which we probably could get with this new chip. Maybe it'll be smarter. And some of the rumor sites are saying that we're actually going to get the eye-controlled autofocus from the R3 in the 5D or the R52. I keep calling it a 5D, R52. We're going to get that eye-controlled autofocus, which would be really cool. I mean, from a marketing standpoint, I think Canon is the only company that has that eye-controlled autofocus technology. And if they were to start dispersing it in all their cameras throughout the whole range, it would really differentiate Canon from Nikon and Sony and Lumix and the other brands, right? So I think it would be smart for Canon to put it in the R52 just to make their products different from everyone else's. And I think the other benefit we're going to see with the new chip, hopefully, is better ISO performance. And like I said, hopefully we get that dual gain ISO. That would be fantastic. But yeah, if this chip can process more information and process the noise out of the images in camera, that would be like, wow, fantastic. All right, so let's talk about video now. What are the rumors out there about video? And video has become a really important factor in in cameras and promoting cameras and advertising cameras. Because the thing is, like, if a camera has weak video specs, the YouTube reviewers generally give the camera bad reviews, even if it's a great photo camera. Like the R5, for example, amazing photo camera, best photo camera I've ever owned. I personally think it's the best photo camera Canon has ever made. But when the R5 came out, it was trashed all over YouTube because of the weird video, because it had those overheating issues and like issues on the video side. All the reviewers on YouTube, and everyone goes to YouTube to watch reviews on gear before they buy it. I mean, that's how it is these days, right? But all the reviewers on YouTube gave the R5 bad reviews because the video specs weren't good and the overheating and all these issues. So I'm sure Canon lost thousands of dollars in sales, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars in sales, because of the bad reviews. So it's very important for cameras these days to have really good video specs right out of the gate. So when the reviewers start making the videos and putting them out there on the internet, these cameras are talked about positively and people want to buy them, right? I just, my thoughts on it from a marketing advertising perspective. So hopefully Canon learned their lesson with the R5 launch, and the R52 comes out of the gate with superb video specs, superb photo specs, and everything just works, and there's no overheating and no 30-minute record limit and all that nonsense. So fingers crossed, that's what I'm looking forward to. All right, so the first note I have here, there's no mention of this on any of the rumor sites, but I'm pretty sure, I'm 99.99999% sure that the 30-minute record limit on the R52 is going to be gone. And thank God for that. Hopefully, I never want to deal with that again. I'm pretty sure, because the 30-minute record limit on the R5 is such a deal breaker for people, especially if they're shooting long form content like podcasts and things like that, and they want to record it. Like, I'm sure Canon has lost so many sales because of that 30-minute record limit. So it better be gone in the R52. All right, now the next thing, and this is pretty exciting, the rumor sites are saying that the R52 will be able to shoot 8K at 60 frames per second in RAW, which is, like, that's crazy, right? If you think about it, that would be awesome. But there's something else, and this is completely speculative here, but if we have a 62 megapixel sensor, technically you could shoot 10K. And with the new X2S processor, maybe we could shoot 10K. And you know how Canon with the R5 was the first camera company to offer 8K video in a hybrid camera for consumers? Maybe Canon is going to jump on that train again and be the first camera company to offer 10K recording in a hybrid camera for consumers. But the only caution I would give Canon in that situation is, if you're going to advertise 10K recording and the camera overheats in 5 minutes, make sure in your marketing you say 10K recording, but only for 5 minutes or short sequences, right? Don't get people's hopes up and then they start reviewing the camera on YouTube and start bashing it because it overheats, right? So anyway, I mean, maybe that's possible. Maybe we will have 10K oversampled 8K, 10K oversampled 4K. Who knows? These are just like speculations. I'm just throwing these crazy ideas out there. But with the new processor and the new sensor, faster readout speeds, maybe it's possible. Stack sensor might open up some new doors that otherwise were impossible before. So fingers crossed, this could be pretty exciting. Again, with the speculation hat on, with the stack sensor and the X2S processor, maybe we'll be able to get a really nice 4K 120 file out of the R52. Maybe we could even get 6K or 8K oversampled 4K 120. Like, that would be pretty sweet for those of us who shoot slow-mo. And I'm pretty sure, like, there's so many other companies out there who already do 240 frames a second. So it would be cool if Canon put like 240 frames per second in 4K in the R52. I think that would be a huge selling feature. People would jump all over that. That would be pretty cool. And I know they might be thinking, oh, we're going to put that in the R1 and not in the R5. But the R1 is for a completely different demographic. I mean, people who are buying or are going to buy an R1, those are the pros, right? And you're going to have some prosumers buying the R5 too. But prosumers won't be buying the R1. So it's a completely different market. So I think putting 240 frames a second, 4K would be like, in the R52 would be absolutely amazing. That would really entice a lot of people to want to buy that camera. All right, we already touched on this on the photo side of things, but for those of you who skipped the photo side and right to the video side, dynamic range, stack sensor. Could this be, the light just went out. How did it go out already? That was a fresh battery. Do we need it? I don't know. Anyway, we're dealing with a stack sensor, and hopefully that stack sensor gives us better dynamic range. It should technically give us better dynamic range, and hopefully it's also like a dual gain sensor, so we have a really high ISO available to us that's super clean. So for video, that would be absolutely fantastic. I personally would absolutely love that, to to see a dual gain sensor for video, like the DGO sensor in the what is it, the C60? I keep forgetting the name of the camera, but the images out of that camera, or the video footage out of that camera, are so beautiful, so clean. The dynamic range is amazing. It blew the R5 out of the water, right? But if we could get that technology in the R52 with this new sensor, whoa, that would be so sweet. All right, so now let's go around the outside and take a look at some of the physical features of the R5 based on the rumor sites. They're saying that the EVF will have 5.76 million dots, which is the exact same thing that the R5 has. I'm super happy with the R5, no complaints, so that's okay. LCD will be improved, but there is no talk about how the LCD will be improved. Are they going to actually improve the resolution? Are they going to improve the hinge mechanism and do like a dual hinge type thing? There's no mention of that. It's just going to be improved. All right, so the other thing rumor sites are talking about is the fact that the R52 is going to have dual CF Express Type B card slots. Now, for me personally, as a hybrid shooter and someone who shoots a lot of video and high-end video, that's amazing because now I can shoot video to one card and back it up to the other card and everything's good. The R5 had an SD card and a CF Express Type B card slot, and you had to have two types of cards in there, and it was just a bit wonky. I didn't like that whole situation. But from a photographer's perspective, dual CF Express Type B cards is great, but from a photographer's perspective, and I totally relate to this because I was a photographer only for so long, it might be a bit of a pain in the butt because now you're like, oh, I have to buy these new memory cards that are like 3 times the price of SD cards, and why? I'm not even going to use the video features, so why the heck am I investing in these cards? It's such a pain and blah, 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 and I totally get it. But I mean, if you do invest in those cards, like downloading data from those cards onto your computer is blazing fast. Like, wow, that's a huge benefit. But what I am hoping for is that Canon implements a system kind of like what Sony did, where they have the 2 card slots, but each card slot could accept 2 different types of cards. So if we could have card slots that accept CF Express Type B and SD cards, maybe flip it one way, flip it the other way, and you can fit 2 types of cards in there, that would be fantastic because then the photographers won't be upset because they have to buy all new memory cards, right? That's just something to think about. So I don't know. The rumor sites aren't saying if it's going to accept 2 different types of cards. They're just saying it's going to accept 2 CF Express Type B cards. So the R52 will also sport that new hot shoe that all the cameras have nowadays, and it has those little connectors in there so you can attach that Tascam recorder, and Canon also has a shotgun mic that can be attached to it. And the R52, I think, is going to be a really popular camera, so hopefully that drives innovation, and there's other companies creating attachments for that hot shoe connector, because as far as I know, now I haven't really done any research on it, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of stuff coming out that takes advantage of that hot shoe connector, so it would be nice if other companies started innovating in that space. All right, another thing rumor sites are talking about is the R52 will have a brand new battery in it. Now, this new battery isn't going to be different in terms of size or length or anything like that, so it's going to be backwards compatible with all the other cameras. From what I understand, it's just going to have a bigger capacity, but in the same size and form factor, which is good. So, I mean, all your old batteries from your other cameras are still going to work in the 5D Mark II, but they probably just won't last as long because I can imagine with the new processor and the capabilities, it's going to drain batteries a lot faster. Now, one thing that caught my eye on the rumor sites is that they're saying that the button layout on the R52 is going to be different. Now, that could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. I don't know. Like, hopefully it's nothing like this. The EOS R had this swipe bar. It was okay once you got used to it, but the problem with the swipe bar, and again with the R7 with that joystick rotating wheel thingy, the problem with these cameras is they're one-off cameras, right? So if you have, like for me, I use the R5 all the time, and then when I switch back to using the R, it's like I go to get that wheel, but there's no wheel or joystick, there's that. And when I'm using the R7, it's like the wheel's in a different place, so it's frustrating. So hopefully when Canon redoes the R52, they keep it consistent with the R, because I know a lot of people are probably gonna have an R52 as a main camera and an R5 as a backup camera, or maybe even get the R1 as their main camera, R52 as the backup camera. So hopefully the button layouts on these higher end model cameras that professionals use all have similar button layouts, because if Canon starts messing around with everything, then it's frustrating to switch from one platform to another platform because the buttons are in a different place. And that's what I find so annoying with the R, the R7, and the R5 is the buttons are in different places on all those cameras. But if they do want to innovate and change buttons around, there's 2 things I would strongly be in favor of. And one, the EOS R, for some reason, being the first camera that can shoot 8K in camera, hybrid camera, did not have a dedicated video photo switch. So if Canon could put a dedicated video photo switch on the R52, amazing. And the other thing I would absolutely love to see is the on-off switch. And Canon's been moving the on-off switch around in different places on newer cameras, but I still think right here by the shutter release is the place for the on-off switch. All the other camera brands do it. I think Canon just needs to just bite the bullet and do it, because for, let's say you're disabled, you only have one hand. How are you supposed to, you have to turn it on and pull it off? Like, you know what I mean? It's just so much easier for like one-handed operation. You flip on the camera, you start doing your shoots. It's just so much faster. You pull out of the bag. But what I would recommend, and this is just like an innovative idea, is that you have on, off, and standby switch. So camera obviously on, obviously off, you know what that does, but standby would be great. Like you just flip it to standby and EVF, LCD, turn off, the continuous autofocus, if you have that selected on, that turns off. And then also any kind of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth connections all turns off. Feeding the camera to the tether to a computer turns off. So put it in standby, camera just goes into standby, all the electronics shut off, you're not wasting any battery. So let's say you're shooting a wedding. You know, I've shot weddings so many times and my screens are on and they're bright, I'm shooting in the dark, and it's like, I just want to turn it off, so I flip the camera off. But then the on-off switch is on the wrong side, so you have to flip it on and then bring the camera up to your eye. So anyway, it'd be nice to have like a button, even maybe somewhere else on the body, a programmable button. You can just hit it and the camera just goes into sleep mode, but you just touch the shutter release and it just wakes up and it's ready to shoot again. So that would be kind of cool, an on-off standby switch. But yeah, with that being said, those are the rumors from the rumor sites as of right now. It is October 2023. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot more rumors and things leaking out as the days get closer to February. And I'm super excited for the 5D Mark II. Now, let's talk about some things we would like to see in the R5 Mark II. So, I mean, people who are watching this video, leave your comments down below. Let me know what you would like to see in it. I'm just going to go over some things I would like to see in it. Obviously, we just talked about the on-off switch. I think that would be great. All right, so there's one thing in the EOS R5 menu that's been driving me crazy since the day I got it, and that's the set shutter speed range. So you can go in the menu and you can set the shutter speed so it never drops below. Let's say for shooting weddings, I like to set it to 1/25th of a second, so the shutter will never drop below 1/25th, so I can't accidentally move the wheel or set it to anything lower than 1/25th. And that's great, but the Canon menu system is designed so that there's a certain set of menu options and custom modes for video and a certain set of custom modes for photo. But for whatever reason, the set shutter speed range crosses over on both sides. So if I set it to minimum of 125th of a second for shooting photos at a wedding and I want to shoot video, now all of a sudden I can't shoot at 50 frames a second if I want to shoot at 24p, because I have to go into set shutter speed range and then drop it down to 24 or drop it down to 50. But if I leave it at 50 when I shoot photos, I can accidentally switch my shutter speed to 50th and I get really blurry shots. So I'd like to see the set shutter speed range separate for photo and separate for video. That's super handy because that's one of those things that's just been annoying me like crazy. And the next firmware update was suggested actually by a subscriber, and what he suggested was that the set shutter speed range should be relative to the lens you put on your camera. Because obviously if you're shooting with, let's say, an 800mm, you want your shutter speed to be a lot higher than 1/25th of a second. So because all these lenses are electronic and they communicate with the camera, he suggested that, hey, if you put, let's say, a longer lens on your camera, the camera recognizes the lens and it can go into its memory banks or whatever and adjust the shutter speed range specifically for that lens. So if you put a long telephoto on your lens, you don't have to worry about resetting it. Or if you, let's say you go to a wide angle 16mm, you can drop your shutter speed even lower to maximize on the amount of light you can get in. Where were we? So you can maximize on the amount of light you can get in. And I thought that was a really cool idea because these cameras are like mini computers and they do know what lens is on the front. So why not have custom settings for each lens? All right, so here's something I'd really like to see, and that's autofocus snap to grid. So you have that 3x3 grid or 9x9 grid. There's different grids on the EOS R5. And what I would like to see is when you hit the joystick to move the focus point, it just snaps to one of the intersections on the grid. So for example, if you're shooting with the rule of thirds, focus point will snap to one of the points. So there's 4 points you could snap to, and if you push the joystick straight down, it'll just snap right to center point focus. So for me personally, I like to shoot with the rule of thirds, and I use that for composition, and it would just be cool if the focus point just snapped to one of the points, and that was it, super simple. And of course, if you're using a different grid, it'll snap to different focus points. The next firmware update I want to see is an improvement on something that's already pretty awesome, and that's the fact that the shutter speed comes down when you turn off the camera. Now that's perfect, I love that. Thank you, Canon, for that. I really appreciate it, especially when shooting weddings. Turn off the camera, shutter speed comes down, you don't have to worry about dust getting on the sensor. But what I would like to see that, or how I would like to see that improved is I want it to come down faster. When I hit the off button, you have to wait 1-2 seconds and then it closes. And when you're shooting a wedding and you're trying to switch lenses fast and you need speed, that's way too slow. You go to your camera bag, you turn off your camera, and then you have to wait to hear the click, and then you change lenses. It'd be nice if, like, as soon as you hit the off button, the shutter came down right away and it was instantaneous. Now let's talk about zebras in photo mode. Now when you're in video mode, you can set your zebras. Zebras are these like lines, black and white lines that show you what's overexposed. So if your window light's overexposed, the lighting on your model's face, so on and so forth, zebra lines will show up to let you know that that area is overexposed. Now I'd like to see that technology migrate over to the photo side. So if you're shooting photos and your sky's overexposed, your model's face, etc., just put little zebra lines on that area so that we can adjust our exposure accordingly in photo mode. That would be super handy. Okay, shutter button tap to zoom out. Now this is something that's been bugging me so much with the Canon menu system. I like to shoot with vintage lenses and manual focus lenses, and this is something that's probably annoyed everyone who uses Canon and shoots with manual focus lenses. So when you have the lens on the front of your camera and you want to zoom in for critical focus, you hit the magnifying glass, camera zooms in, right? The display zooms in, you align your focus, you get everything good, then you have to double tap the zoom button or the magnifying glass button to get back out, and then hit the shutter button to take your shot. And it doesn't make any sense because things move and shake, and especially if you're shooting with like this is a 1.5 lens, you could lose critical focus. So what I would like to see is that if you zoom in and you get critical focus, to zoom back out, all you have to do is tap the shutter button and then push it down all the way to take the shot. It would make it so much better. Like just tap the shutter button to zoom out. That would be a huge bonus to anybody who shoots with manual focus lenses. All right, so here's a firmware update suggested from one of my subscribers, and they suggested that it would be nice if Canon had some sort of sound you can turn on when shooting in electronic shutter mode, so you know that you're actually taking a photo. I know as like a wedding photographer, everything's always silent because you don't want to disturb the scene, you don't want to disturb anything, but there's certain times when it's louder and you just don't even know if you're shooting, because when it's silent, you can hear the little right? But if there's people talking around you and it's louder, you don't hear anything. So maybe that would be a good suggestion, or maybe a good firmware update if you can somehow put sounds in there. And you know what would be really cool if Canon, if you want to take it to the next level, allow us to upload our own sounds to the camera. So when we take a picture, it plays the sound we want to give us some more customizability. That would be kind of interesting, right? All right, so those are the updates I want to see on the photo side of the camera. Let's move on to the video side, and then we'll talk about the Canon rumors firmware updates. All right, first one on the video side, and this is a big one. We've all been talking about this for a long time. As videographers, as video shooters, we would like to see the histogram stay on the LCD display when we're recording video, because you can see the histogram, everything's fine when you're composing your shot, and then as soon as you hit record, it disappears. And sometimes when you're shooting with log formats, for example, you want to see that histogram because it's valuable information. You want to know if you're clipping, you're blowing out, because everything's washed out gray. So histogram while recording would be nice, Canon. All right, screen rotation. Now here's the thing. Short form content is here to stay. There's nothing we can do about it. Love it or hate it, it's here, right? So a lot of us are shooting TikTok content, Instagram content, YouTube shorts. And the problem with the Canon cameras is when you're shooting in vertical mode and the screen is flipped up and you want to watch your footage, it's upside down. So it would be nice to have some kind of menu setting which would allow us to flip those around. So when the camera's in vertical mode, either just have the top left side is the top or the right side is the top. So it'd be nice to be able to change that in the menu settings. Another nice thing I would love to see is a red outline tally light type thing on the screen when we're recording. So right now I'm looking at the LCD screen on the side of the Canon, and I just see the red record button, which is cool, but it would be nice to have like a red box, maybe 2-3 pixels thick all around. So when it's solid red box around everything, I know it's recording and there's no confusion. All right, so now I want to talk about one of the things that I find so frustrating as someone who shoots video with the EOS R5, and that's the playback volume. The speakers are so low. I have them set to full volume on playback, and when I hit playback, it's like I can barely hear what I just recorded, and that's so frustrating. I don't know if there's a way that you can, in firmware, give a little more juice to those speakers to increase the volume at which it plays back so we can actually hear the content that we just recorded without having to plug in headphones or speakers or something like that. So that would be nice. Now I want to see another firmware update to the video codec format section. Now Canon did a great job designing this because you pick your codec, you pick your size, you pick your frame rate, and it's all right there. And anything that isn't available is grayed out, so you can just pick stuff, and it's just a beautiful system. Now, I would like to see that system improved, and I want to see it improved by an addition to high frame rate. So why isn't 120 frames in this layout? You know, why isn't log an option as a format here? That would be so good. And what's the other one I put in here? It'd be nice to see HQ. So 4K HQ, 120 frames per second, log, and then the formats that are available. It would be nice if the whole video menu was right there. And let's say you wanted to adjust your log, then hit the info button. And then the log menu will pop up and you can pick which log you want and all those other settings. But it would be nice if all the basic functions were right there, all the basic video settings were in one spot, so you can just click what you want, and if you want to change it, you know, pick the next one. And yeah, that would be super helpful, because then you don't have to go out of that menu and then into the log menu and then click this, and then it's just too complicated. Let's simplify. Let's simplify. All right, that video was super fun to make. I really enjoyed that, so hopefully you guys enjoyed it too. I'm super stoked for this R52. I think it's going to be a fantastic camera. I'm going to put down my pre-order as soon as I'm able, and I will definitely be doing an unboxing and first impressions video on this channel, so if that's something you're into, definitely subscribe. We're going to make a lot of R52 content. The R5 has been my daily driver for 3 years now, so it's going to be replaced with the R52, and I look forward to seeing what that camera is all about. And like I said, leave your comments down below. Hopefully Canon watches this video, they see some of the comments, and hopefully we get some input into what this camera is all about. And with that being said, thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel. Peace out, and I will see you guys in another video.